I'd driven Interstate 80 more times than I could count, but that Saturday evening the lanes felt unfamiliar, like I'd slipped onto a detour that only looked like home. Orange leaves chased my windshield wipers, a reminder that October never stays long in Sacramento. Mom's text had been simple: "Come for dinner, sweetheart. Just the five of us. It's been too long." The words tasted sweet, but even honey can hide a sting. I told myself families mended over meals every day, maybe ours finally could, too. The porch light flickered when I stepped from my car, arms stiff after 2 hours behind the wheel. The old wind chime, 3 battered seashells Parker glued together in 6th grade, tinkled above the door, a shy greeting. Before I could knock, Mom swung the door wide, her perfume mixing with cinnamon-scented candles. "Look at you," she cooed, smoothing imaginary lint from my coat. Her hands hovered a moment longer than necessary, as if staging affection for an invisible audience. I offered a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. In the foyer, Dad lingered beside the hall table, half smile in place, posture careful. He hugged me with one arm, the other cradling a glass of red he'd probably poured the minute he heard my tires crunch the gravel. My brother appeared next, lean shoulders slouched against the wall. Parker's grin carried the easy confidence of someone who's never paid full price for his own mistakes. "Hey, sis. Still driving that electric roller skate?" He winked, amused by his own joke. Olivia breezed in, phone in hand, screen reflecting in her oversized glasses. "Soph, you're here," she chirped, thumbs still tapping. For a second I thought she might actually hug me. Instead she settled for an air kiss, the kind that leaves no trace. We moved toward the dining room. Candles flickered along the runner, their soft halos bouncing off the crystal Mom reserved for holidays. The beef stew, her signature, simmered in a ceramic tureen, rosemary and garlic drifting through the house like an old lullaby. I inhaled and felt my shoulders loosen, scent as a stubborn memory, and mine remembered feeling safe around this table. Plates clinked, napkins unfolded, casual chatter filled the spaces where real questions should have sat. I spoke about a product launch in San Francisco. Parker complained about a professor who just didn't vibe with his latest change of major. Olivia described a wellness retreat that totally aligned her chakras. Only Mom's bright nodding and Dad's quiet refills stitched the conversation together. When the stew was finally ladled, the room fell into a comfortable hush broken only by spoons against porcelain. Steam fogged my glasses. I lifted them, blinking at the blur until it cleared. Across the table Parker caught Olivia's eye and lifted a brow, an inside signal I'd almost missed. A chill slipped down my spine. Mom dabbed her lips, folded the napkin with surgical precision, and cleared her throat. "Before we enjoy dessert," she began, voice soft as flannel, "your father and I want to share some important family news." The room stilled. Even the clock seemed to pause between ticks. "We've finalized our estate," she said, fingers splayed on the linen. "The house, the Tahoe cabin, the savings, we decided to pass everything down to Parker and Olivia." For a heartbeat I heard only the candle wick sputter. My spoon hovered, stew dripping back into the bowl. I glanced at Dad. He stared deeply into his wine, a man studying escape routes in dark liquid. Mom pressed on, tone soothing. "Sweetheart, you're established. You have that beautiful condo, your company, your independence. This ensures your brother and sister get the boost they need." A soft click echoed as Parker leaned back, chair protesting. "It's logical, sophomore. You know spreadsheets better than anyone. Spread the assets where they yield the best return." Olivia twirled a strand of hair, gaze skipping over me like I was wallpaper. "And, honestly, you don't need the hassle of property taxes. Consider it freedom." "Freedom." The word rang, empty as a cracked bell. I placed my fork down, aligning it with the knife, an instinct for order when everything else tilts. A decade of canceled vacations, after-hours contracts, and hefty transfers rolled through my mind like film on fast forward. The year I covered the overdue mortgage so Mom's credit wouldn't implode, the surprise tuition bill Parker forgot to mention, Olivia's designer ski gear because Tahoe winters were brutal. I'd counted dollars but never signed an invoice. Love, I'd believed, wasn't a ledger. My voice arrived calm, too calm. So you're saying all I've given, that doesn't count as contribution? Mom's smile tightened. Darling, this isn't about the past. It's planning for the future. Parker chuckled, low. Come on, sis, don't be dramatic. You're the success story. We're just catching up. Dad finally spoke, words rehearsed. It doesn't diminish you, Sophia. It's simply equitable. Equitable. I tasted the irony and found it bitter. I thought of something my grandmother whispered once while shelling peas. Fair doesn't always mean equal, but love should feel like both. The memory rose unbidden, steadied me. I inhaled stew-scented air that suddenly felt heavy as smoke. Candlelight wavered, casting long shadows that made strangers of the faces I knew best. I see, I said, though I saw too much. My mother reached toward my hand. I withdrew, folding palms into my lap, heat crawling up my neck. Parker exhaled a theatrical sigh. Can we not ruin dinner? Mom, dessert? But dessert would not save us. Some courses can't be served once appetite is gone. Silence pulled, even Olivia's screen dimmed. My breath sounded loud in my ears. I watched a droplet of gravy slide down the curve of my spoon until it fell, splashing into the bowl, small, but final. This can't be real, I whispered, though no one answered. The grandfather clock resumed its ticking, steady and unsympathetic, as if marking the precise moment a family cracked along lines invisible an hour before. My fork lay cold against china, mirroring the sudden chill in my chest. And somewhere deep inside, a lock clicked shut, not on them, but on the door I'd kept open far too long. Parker's spoon paused midair, stew dripping a slow, deliberate line back into his bowl. To avoid misunderstandings, he said, voice smooth as varnish, Mom and Dad just want you to know they thought long and hard before finalizing things. He flicked his gaze at me the way a dealer checks a card he's already sure of. I folded my napkin across my lap to keep my hands from shaking. Long and hard, I echoed, tasting the cotton in my throat. Funny how I wasn't part of that discussion. Parker shrugged, an elegant lift of shoulders that implied inevitability. You don't need it, sophomore. You killed it in tech. A condo in the city, stock options, a loft office downtown. The rest of us, he flashed a grin. We're still on our way. Across the table Olivia puffed air through her teeth, lips pursed in mock pity. Honestly, your life looks perfect on Instagram. #goals, babe. Her laugh was a silver bell, pleasant if you didn't hear the rust on the inside. The candles seemed to shrink, their flames bowing under an invisible wind. Shadows thickened behind Mom, highlighting the sharp angle of her chin. I drew a slow breath, let the oxygen settle. Stay calm. Numbers first, feelings later. So let's talk need, I began, voice measured. The Tahoe renovation? $40,000 on my credit card because the deck was rotting and the plumbing was ancient. The mortgage for this house? I rested 2 fingers against the polished table. 6 years, $1,800 a month, plus insurance and taxes when they spiked. Holidays, Hawaii, Aspen, Disneyland, because you said family memories were priceless. Yet somehow price always showed up on my statement. Olivia's chair creaked as she leaned back, folding her arms. You kept track of every penny? She asked, eyebrows arched in theatrical disappointment. Funny, I said, memory works better when it's tied to billing alerts. Parker rolled his eyes. Classic Sophia. Everything's a spreadsheet. Mom shifted, porcelain earrings catching the candlelight. Money isn't the measure of love, darling. Your brother and sister have been financed by me since they were old enough to ask for concert tickets, I finished. And you encouraged it. Dad cleared his throat but said nothing. The sound reminded me of a floorboard groaning under too much weight, warning, but no movement. For a moment no one spoke. Heat crawled up my neck, threatening to betray me with tears. I swallowed hard. A memory flashed, 28, standing in my tiny first apartment, whispering apologies to a friend on speaker because I couldn't join her backpacking trip. The family washer had died, Mom said, and the new one was on sale, but only till Sunday. I'd sent the money. I always sent the money. Olivia drummed manicured nails on her plate. Look, we appreciate what you did, but you did it because you wanted to. Wanted. The word slammed against my ribs. Did I want to postpone grad school so Parker could change majors a fourth time? Did I want to max a card on Olivia's mind-body retreat when she quit another job? I inhaled, exhaled. The air tasted like burnt sugar. Parker tipped his chair back. Bottom line? You're secure. Me and Liv, well, we need the foundation. The foundation. That deck in Tahoe had been a foundation once, dry rot peeling away like sunburnt paint. I'd worked nights to finish a product rollout, funneling the bonus straight into cedar planks and copper piping so the place wouldn't collapse. They'd posed for photos in front of the refurbished railing, mugs of cocoa held high. I'd been behind the camera. Mom's tone iced over. Sophia, you're spiraling into numbers again. Your father and I weighed everyone's circumstances. This decision is fair. Fair? The word slipped out sharper than I intended. I saw Olivia's smile widen. Mom pressed on. Success changes responsibility. You've flown farther, you have sturdier wings. And that makes me less of a daughter? I asked. The room hushed. Somewhere a baseboard heater clicked and sighed. No answer. No apology. Just half-lit faces carved in waxy stillness. In their silence something pivotal shifted, anger cooling into something crystalline, a clarity that cut short and deep. They had never misread me, they'd simply read my balance sheet and stopped at the bottom line. I straightened my back, fingers uncurling from the napkin like petals smoothing in sunlight. I hear you, I said, level and quiet. Parker studied me, suspicion flickering in his eyes. Olivia looked almost disappointed, as if robbed of further sport. Mom released a breath, mistaking my calm for concession. Dad lifted his glass, throat working, but whatever words he'd meant to offer dissolved into Merlot. I let the silence expand, a steady tide washing sandcastles away. Inside, invisible threads began snapping, obligations I'd tied lovingly around this table, now slack and pointless. I thought of missed birthdays with friends, of the Paris photography course I'd deferred twice, of handwritten lists titled Someday that yellowed in my desk drawer while I played savior. Someday had just become tonight. I pushed my chair back slowly, careful not to scrape wood. Their eyes tracked the motion like cats watching a laser dot. I'm stepping outside for some air, I murmured, voice still gentle, almost affectionate. Mom half rose. Darling, dessert. Later, I promised, though we both knew it was a lie. As I crossed the threshold to the hallway, candlelight fell away. The corridor bulbs were dimmer, cooler. My shadow stretched long on the hardwood, but it felt lighter than it had in years. Behind me Parker's low voice resumed, a buzz I no longer strained to decipher. In the foyer mirror I caught my reflection, eyes bright, cheeks flushed, but steady. I inhaled the faint scent of Mom's lavender plug-in mingling with autumn air from the open window. Then I exhaled, slow, deliberate, like releasing a weight at the end of a marathon. I said nothing. I simply breathed. And somewhere beneath the tight stitch of anger, I felt the first tug of something startling and new, space. I kept the engine quiet on the drive back. The hum of the battery felt like a secret I wasn't ready to share. Sacramento's streetlights blurred into gold ribbons behind me, and with every mile marker I let another thread snap, one for each forgotten birthday, each just a little help, honey. By the time the Bay Bridge lights came into view, the weight in my chest felt strangely buoyant, like a suitcase finally zipped shut. My condo greeted me with stillness, no scented candles, no ticking clock, only the low, steady hush of the city drifting through double-paned glass. I tossed my keys onto the marble tray, kicked off heels that pinched, and padded across cool hardwood toward the kitchen. The refrigerator's hum sounded almost cheerful compared with the dinner table hush I'd left behind. I opened my laptop on the breakfast bar. The blue glow lit the stainless steel appliances, the expansive counters I rarely cooked on. I typed my bank's URL, the muscle memory automatic, the password filled in before I finished thinking. A dashboard appeared, neat as a new notebook, except for the long column of scheduled payments highlighted in corporate green. Recurring transfers, upcoming. November 1, 2023 mortgage, Mom and Dad, $1,500. November 1, 2023 utilities, parental home, $600. November 5, 2023 Sac State tuition, Parker, $3,200. November 10, 2023 Olivia, wellness retreat deposit $900. I let my finger rest on the trackpad. One click and the edit option popped up. My pulse gave a single hard knock against my ribs. Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring transfer? This action cannot be undone. A small mercy, the interface left no room for second thoughts. I hit confirm. Success, recurring payment cancelled. The phrase blossomed in a lime green banner across the screen. I exhaled, surprised by how satisfying the color looked. I clicked the mortgage line next. Confirm. Success. One by one the banners stacked, a neon parade marching my money back into my own pocket. Halfway through, the phone on the counter lit up. Mom, mobile. I didn't answer. The call rolled to voicemail before the first ring finished. A red dot appeared. Then another. Dad, mobile. Ignore. I turned back to the laptop, canceling Olivia's deposit, success, and Parker's looming tuition draft, success. The phone buzzed again, rattling against the quartz. This time Parker's name flashed accompanied by a preview bubble, WTF, sis? Then another, you better not bail, text after text stacking like falling cards. I closed the banking tab, opened a spreadsheet of my own, and typed 3 columns, date, description, amount. I let numbers spill out, 6 years of silent giving, line after line. By the time I hit auto sum, the total blinked back, $312,480. I let out a low whistle I barely recognized as my own. A voicemail icon blinked insistently. I tapped play, speaker low. Mom's voice unfurled, honey mixing with vinegar. Sophia, I'm sure you acted in haste. We'll talk in the morning. Family is forever. Click. Dad's voice followed, softer, like he was hiding in the garage. Pumpkin, your mother's upset. Let's sit down like adults. Don't do anything rash. Click. Olivia's voicemail didn't bother with pleasantries. How childish can you be? Money doesn't buy love, remember that. Oh, wait, you never learned. Click. Each message landed lighter than the one before. I copied them into a folder labeled evidence/2023, an automatic reflex I didn't fully question. It was after midnight when I opened my phone settings. My thumb hovered over family in the contact list. A breeze rattled the balcony door. The city below glowed like 1,000 promises I'd postponed. I tapped edit block contact for mom, then dad, Parker, Olivia. Each time the device chirped a neutral tone, like a clerk stamping a form. When the last block confirmed, I set the phone face down. The quiet that followed wasn't empty, it was roomy, like the hush after orchestra tuning. Something was about to begin. I brewed chamomile tea, carried it to the bedroom window, and leaned my forehead against the cool pane. In the distance, fog crept along Mission Street, softening neon into watercolor. The world felt wide and mercifully uninterested in my family drama. In this life, I thought, peace often hides behind a door we're afraid to close. Tonight I'd closed it, softly, but firmly. Sleep claimed me before the teacup cooled, and for the first time in years no midnight ping dragged me back to obligation. I woke to sunlight pooling across the duvet, a luxury I scarcely recognized. My body stretched without the usual knot under my ribs. Then the phone, face down on the nightstand, buzzed, 3 short vibrations. I frowned, rolled over, and flipped it. A new notification glowed through the Do Not Disturb curtain. Unknown number, voice call, missed. Voicemail, transcript available. The preview showed only 5 words, "This isn't over, Sophia." My thumb hovered above the notification, pulse ticking faster. Outside, the city kept its easy rhythm, delivery trucks groaning, gulls arguing near the Embarcadero, but the screen in my hand hummed like a live wire. The white foam had hardened like stone. My front door was sealed shut, a gray volcanic crust filling every seam from jamb to threshold. In the thin dawn light the texture looked almost lunar, pitted, jagged, utterly final. A chilly gust funneled down the hallway, carrying the salty tang of San Francisco fog and something sourer, the chemical bite of expanding foam left to cure overnight. For a moment I just stared, coffee mug cooling in my hand. I'd told myself they wouldn't go this far, petty texts, sure, scolding voicemails, absolutely, but vandalism? A tiny voice in my head whispered, "You taught them where your boundaries were. They're testing every inch." I set the mug on the console table and pulled out my phone. The security cam app opened to a frozen frame of the hallway at 1:13 a.m. I dragged a fingertip backward along the timeline. The image flickered, then sprang to life, a figure in a gray hoodie, head down, shoulders hunched in staged nonchalance. The person raised a can, pressed the nozzle, white froth erupting like shaving cream on fast forward, hissing as it swallowed the doorframe. When the intruder glanced up, the camera caught a partial profile, the slope of a familiar jaw, the smirk he wore even when he wasn't trying. Parker. My throat tightened, not with surprise but with an old, exhausted grief. I saved the clip, named it Parker_foam_1016.mp4, and tapped share, save to evidence folder. Then I dialed 911. Officer Hernandez arrived 20 minutes later, the morning fog still slinking down Mission Street behind her squad car. She stood in the hallway, hands on her belt, boots squeaking softly on the polished concrete. "That's quite a seal," she murmured, running a gloved knuckle along the hardened foam. "I've got footage," I said, phone already unlocked. She watched the clip twice, expression unreadable, then nodded. "You recognize him?" "My brother." biological. A small hum of sympathy slipped through her professional mask. Okay. This falls under vandalism and harassment. You want to press charges? I want a report on file and a restraining order started. I'm not looking for revenge, just a line he can't cross. She took the statement with calm efficiency, recording serial numbers for the camera, snapping photos of the damage. When she asked if there had been prior incidents, I mentioned the family meeting, the threats, the text message that read "This isn't over, Sophia." She wrote steadily, pen scraping in the hush like a metronome keeping us on tempo. After she left, maintenance arrived with a box cutter and industrial solvent. They sawed and scraped, shards of stiff foam raining onto tarps. The solvent smelled like melted crayons and citrus peel, sharp enough to sting my eyes. I tipped the crew generously. Kindness felt like armor I was determined to keep polished. Mid-morning, with the door finally functional, I brewed fresh coffee and opened my email. Within minutes a new voicemail notification blinked, "Dad." The subject line from the transcription service read, "Call me ASAP." I pressed play. His voice crackled with forced calm. "Sophia, I heard you called the police. Let's not escalate, okay? Your mother's upset." Parker was frustrated. "We can handle this inside the family." Inside the family. As if the family hadn't already boarded up every window and handed me the bill. I hit redial. Dad answered on the second ring, breathless, like he'd been pacing. "Pumpkin." "Dad, I filed a police report. The footage is clear." "That's felony vandalism." A pause. We don't need courts involved. Lawyers drain everyone." "That's the point," I said evenly. "Actions drain people, too. Repairs, lost work hours, peace of mind." He sighed, a papery sound. "What would make this go away?" Money had always been their language. Fine, we'd speak it fluently. I opened my spreadsheet, added a new tab titled Restitution. Foam removal, lock replacement, emotional distress. My cursor blinked beside the total. $33,000, I said, surprised by how steady my voice was. Dad spluttered. 33, Sophia, that's absurd. It covers damage, locksmith, hotel if I couldn't enter, legal fees if this drags out, and a fraction of the therapy I'll probably need." I inhaled. "Deposit it by Friday into my account. If not, a judge decides." On the line I heard his shoes scuff wood. I pictured him in the den, blinds half closed, rubbing the back of his neck the way he did whenever Mom funneled tension his way. "Your brother made a mistake," he mumbled. "He'll apologize." "He won't," I replied. "And apologies don't unseal doors." Another pause, the silence stretched, frail and whistling like old window panes in wind. Finally he said, "You're tearing this family apart." I closed my eyes, felt the ache of old loyalties loosen. "You did that years ago." Before he could respond, I ended the call. The screen went black, reflecting my own face, tired, yes, but resolute, edges newly sharpened. Outside, a foghorn bellowed over the bay, long and low. Somewhere beyond my window, life moved on. Commuters filed into streetcars, baristas frothed oat milk, gulls squabbled over discarded pastries. The world didn't end when you enforced a boundary, it simply rearranged its furniture. I set the phone face down. 20 missed calls, 46 texts, 1 hardened door, those were just data points now. Justice had a price tag, and I'd named it. At 2:37 a.m. my phone pinged, a single, subdued chime that sliced through the hush of rain pattering the balcony railing. I rolled over, squinting into the glow. Mobile deposit received, $33,000. No subject line, no memo, just numbers larger than any apology they'd ever voiced. I slipped from bed, toes meeting hardwood that had cooled with the night. The living room lamp cast a soft cone of light over a scatter of old photographs I'd pulled from boxes earlier, Dad pushing me on a tire swing, Mom pinning a corsage to my prom dress, Parker and Olivia grinning in ski goggles I'd bought on an overmaxed card. Every picture felt like a receipt. Laptop open, mug of peppermint tea steaming beside it, I stared at the blank status bar on Facebook. I'd typed, deleted, retyped half a dozen times since sunset. Each draft wavered between confession and caution. The deposit settled it. If money was their loudest language, I'd answer in plain speech. I began with the simplest truth. For more than 10 years I've been paying for peace in my family, mortgage, utilities, tuition, vacations, repairs. Tonight that peace cost $33,000 in hush money. The cursor blinked. Rain ticked against glass like someone drumming impatient fingers. I inhaled, let the weight of the moment settle in my ribs, then kept going, names, dates, line items copied straight from bank statements. I wasn't spiteful, I was meticulous. Figures can't fake memory. I added. I'm posting this because silence only protects the wrong people. If you've ever felt like an ATM in your own home, you're not alone. I attached 2 photos, one of Tahoe's newly stained deck, cedar boards I'd purchased, Parker leaning smugly against the railing, and another of a utility receipt with my signature at the bottom. No commentary, just context. Hovering over post, I heard Grandma's old saying drift through my mind like low radio static. In life, truth is the only inheritance you can claim without a lawyer. My finger clicked. The screen refreshed. Status live. I sat back, expecting adrenaline. Instead, calm spread through me, slow as honey on warm toast. A wheel spun in the corner, notifications blooming. First comment, you're so brave to speak up. Thank you for sharing. Second, family is sacred. Airing dirty laundry is shameful. A third stacked under it, she bought their house. That's not laundry, that's a laundromat. I scrolled, heartbeat steady. Some avatars wore angel wings, others digital pitchforks. A retired teacher from my elementary school typed, I always wondered why you looked tired in 6th grade. Now I see you were carrying them even then. A stranger wrote, cut them off. Blood isn't a hall pass for abuse. Someone else replied, she sounds ungrateful. It was a carnival of perspectives, each reflecting where the speaker had been wounded or sheltered. I refreshed. Likes climbed past 400 in minutes, shares multiplied. My tea cooled, but I felt warm, buoyed by strangers who understood the arithmetic of exploitation. The rain picked up, steady and cleansing. The phone rang, Mom. I closed my eyes, counted 3 breaths, and answered. Her voice cracked like dry wood. How dare you? Do you have any idea what you've done? I stated facts, I said, keeping my tone level. Numbers, dates, amounts. Nothing more. You're destroying our family's name, she hissed, breath sharp. Your father's colleagues are calling, the church board is asking questions. No, I said, picturing that deposit time-stamped 2:37 a.m. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped funding the cover-up. She launched into a spiral, legal threats, emotional blackmail, scripture used like a scolding ruler. Her words blurred, a frenzied river that rushed past without soaking in. I held the phone away, listened to rain patter the sill. When she paused for breath, I spoke softly, Mom, a home built on silence will always creak. I'm done propping up the beams. Click. She ended the call. A trembling sigh escaped me, part sorrow, part relief. The screen still displayed her number. I tapped info, scrolled to block caller. My thumb hovered. I recalled her perfume mixing with cinnamon candles, her laughter at Christmas when I surprised her with a new dishwasher, the way she never asked how the bill was paid. Love should feel equal, Grandma said, but it rarely does if one side holds the receipt. Block contact? Block. The phone chimed, efficient, impartial. I moved to Dad's contact, already blocked after our last call. One by one I ensured every family number remained on that silent list. When Mom's name vanished, the apartment felt larger, as though a wall had been removed. Back at the laptop, fresh comments kept rolling. Some praised, some chastised, but I no longer weighed approval like currency. I added a closing note beneath the original post. Setting boundaries isn't betrayal. Sometimes it's the first act of self-respect. Notifications dinged, messages from college friends, former colleagues, people I hadn't heard from in years. My eyelids drooped, exhaustion seeping through the adrenaline's ebb. I powered the laptop down, the keyboard cooling beneath my palms. In the dark, rain softened to a whisper. I gathered the photographs, slid them into a shoebox, and placed it on the top shelf of my hall closet, neither shrine nor trash, just history stored where it could rest. Phone face down, laptop closed, apartment hushed, I let sleep find me on the sofa. For the second night in a row, I dreamed of nothing. Silence, at last, was something I didn't have to buy. The silence was jarring at first, like the quiet after a fire, where even the air feels afraid to move. I woke up every morning not checking my phone immediately, not bracing myself for another venomous voicemail or guilt-laced message. For the first time in years, I wasn't living on edge. I was just living. Mornings became sacred again. I'd brew my coffee slowly, letting the dark roast fill the apartment with its deep, grounding aroma. Sometimes I added cinnamon, just because. I'd sit by the window, legs tucked beneath me, watching the city wake up. No spreadsheets, no family texts, no financial reminders, just me, my cup, and the light shifting across the room. I threw myself into work, not because I had to, but because I finally had space for focus. Projects I delayed were completed, emails were answered with clarity, not resentment. My coworkers noticed. So did my boss. I even signed up for a photography class I'd bookmarked 2 years ago, something just for me, no return on investment required. On weekends, I wandered the farmer's market near the marina. I'd forgotten how much I loved heirloom tomatoes, the ones that looked a little ugly but tasted like summer. A vendor gave me a free loaf of sourdough one Sunday just because I smiled. I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled wider. Of course, nothing gold can stay. The first ripple came like a pebble in a still pond, a message from a distant cousin on Instagram. Hey. I don't want to get in the middle, but maybe don't air family stuff online? Aunt Linda's really upset. Hope you're okay though. I didn't reply. I didn't even open it. But it tightened something in my chest I thought I'd unknotted. Over the next few days, more arrived. A college friend who still talked to Parker. A neighbor from my parents' street. Even a former teacher from middle school. Your mom's always been kind to me. Maybe you two could talk it out? Talk it out? As if this was a misunderstanding over borrowed clothes or a missed birthday call. I deleted the messages one by one. Not angrily, just methodically. Like sweeping dust from the floor. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even hurt. I was just tired of explaining what should have been clear. It was a Tuesday when the calm cracked. I'd just come back from my evening walk, earbuds in, podcasts cued, cool air brushing my cheeks. I tossed my keys into the bowl by the door and grabbed a glass of water. Then my phone buzzed. Just once. No caller ID. Just a text. Family meeting. 7 p.m. No greeting. No explanation. Just those words. I stared at it, waiting for the rush of emotion that usually followed anything labeled family. But it didn't come. I felt blank. Like I'd already heard this before, in another life. My first instinct was to delete it. But something stopped me, not curiosity, not guilt. Maybe it was defiance. Or closure. Or the simple need to see this through. At 7:01 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Another message, same number. You need to be there. It's your responsibility. And there it was, the old script, dusted off and repeated like a hymn. I exhaled slowly, letting the words settle. They didn't sting anymore. They just confirmed what I already knew. Their driveway looked exactly the same, sun-baked asphalt, a neat border of petunias Mom replaced every spring, but I didn't. I parked farther from the garage than usual, leaving an intentional gulf between the bumper of my car and the familiar oil stain Dad never managed to scrub out. Early evening light spilled over the shingles, all gold and nostalgia. Inside, I knew, the shadows would be heavier. When I stepped onto the porch, Mom swung the door open before I could knock, smile stretched holiday-wide. Sophia, sweetheart. Just in time, dinner's keeping warm. Her perfume, gardenia and something sharper, hit me first, followed by the practiced rise and fall of her voice, as if our last conversation had been about casseroles, not lawyers. I offered a polite nod. No hug. Her arms dropped, the second of surprise vanishing behind hostess cheer. The living room looked staged for a real estate brochure, throw pillows fluffed, fireplace candles lit though it wasn't cold. Dad lurked near the mantel, hands clasped, eyes sliding away the moment mine met his. Parker lounged at the dining room threshold, tapping his loafer against the floorboards, tap, 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 like a clock marking each second of his patience. Olivia sat already, scrolling her phone, the reflection of the screen flashed across her perfect lashes. Let's all sit, Mom sang, gesturing toward the table. Turkey-patterned napkins, Thanksgiving in October, lay beside place cards she'd handwritten in looping script. Sophia in bronze ink sat between Mom and Dad like a conciliatory offering. I ignored it, choosing a chair opposite Parker instead. Mom's smile flickered. I thought we'd make this nice. We're family, after all. Family. I folded my hands, porcelain plate gleaming empty before me. The overhead light hummed. Parker's tapping foot quickened. Dad cleared his throat, adopting his board meeting baritone. Thank you for coming, Pumpkin. We want to resolve tensions and move forward. Resolve tensions. Corporate phrasing, as if a vandalized door and a hush money transfer were simply agenda items. I leaned back. Wonderful. Let's start with why I'm really here, because a text demanding my presence wasn't much of an invitation. Olivia's phone clacked onto the table, manicured fingers steepling. We're here to talk like adults. Exposing private matters online was dramatic. Her smile was polite, eyes anything but. So was sealing my apartment door shut, I said. Parker's foot stopped. You're still on that? He scoffed. It was a prank gone sideways. You called the cops. Dad paid. What more do you want? Respect, I thought, but kept my tone even. An acknowledgement that what you did was criminal, not a joke. Mom's napkin crumpled in her fist. We've apologized. Actually, no one has apologized, I corrected. Mom exhaled sharply, then turned the corners of her lips upward again. Well, we're here now. Let's be constructive. Your father and I have decided to, she paused, glancing at Dad for reinforcement. He offered none, eyes fixed on a water ring in the wood. To offer a truce. She lifted a foil-covered platter, revealing roast chicken. The steam curled into the chandelier light, fragrant and inviting. We thought sharing a meal, like Thanksgiving, would symbolize a fresh start. Her voice trembled on the last syllable despite the rehearsed lines. Parker piled potatoes onto his plate, motion careless. Yeah, soft, break bread. No hard feelings. Bread. Hard feelings. I watched butter soften on a roll, fat pooling like melted gold. 3 weeks ago I might have swallowed their version of peace. Tonight, I tasted only theater. I let the silence stretch. Mom's eyes pleaded. Sweetheart? I lifted my glass, studying the reflection of the chandelier. Let's skip ceremony. What do you actually need? A collective flinch rippled around the table. Olivia recovered first, spine straightening. Need? Wow. Not everything is transactional. Isn't it? I asked softly. Last time I was here, love was measured in property lines. Parker's fork clattered. You're twisting things. We're trying to move on. I tilted my head, calm. Move on from accountability? Mom reached across, manicured fingers brushing the tablecloth edge. Honey, resentment poisons the soul. I agree, I said. That's why I stopped drinking from the well. Olivia's laugh sliced the air. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Playing martyr on social media, collecting pity. Revenge, Parker muttered, tapping resumes on his shoe. This is all about revenge. Cold amusement warmed my cheeks. I laughed, a sound without mirth but rich with truth. No, little brother. Revenge takes energy. I just wanted respect. The words landed with the dull weight of iron. Dad's shoulder slumped, Mom's napkin trembled in her grip. Olivia's mouth tightened, corners cracking beneath lip gloss. Tap, tap, tap. Parker's shoe restarted. And if we don't give it? You gonna sue again? His grin dared me. I didn't sue last time. You handed me hush money. This time, there is no price. A hush deeper than any prior argument settled over the table, breaths held, forks paused in midair. Outside, the last of golden hour slipped below the hedges, drawing long bars of shadow across the room. I rose, chair legs scraping. We're done here. I smoothed my jacket, ready to leave them to their staged feast. Parker stood, palms flat on the table, leaning forward. Are you sure about that? His voice thrummed with something between threat and plea. Mom's eyes widened, Dad's lips parted, words stuck behind fear or pride. Olivia's gaze darted between us, calculating. I met Parker's stare, unflinching. I am. I stepped away from the table. Behind me, cutlery rattled as his tapping foot finally stilled, but the tremor in the china spoke louder. I didn't look back. The hiss was sharp. Not loud, not theatrical, just sharp, insistent, wrong. It filtered through the hallway like a whisper that wanted to be a scream. I didn't even have to look this time. I already knew. Foam. Again. I opened the door fast enough to catch the final dribble of white sealant being jammed into the crack. The figure ducked away before the security camera caught his full face, but I didn't need crystal clarity. The angle, the jacket, the walk, Parker wasn't even trying to hide anymore. A neighbor 2 doors down poked his head out. "You okay?" he asked, coffee in one hand, keys in the other. "Yeah," I replied tightly, holding up my phone. "Got it all on camera." Back inside, I rewound the footage. Rewind, pause, screen capture. Rewind, export. I didn't tremble this time. I didn't cry. My hands moved automatically, email to the precinct, timestamp included, CC to my lawyer. Then I opened a new tab, restraining order filing, City of San Francisco. 2 hours later, I sat in the small, quiet waiting area of the local police station. My backpack rested on my knees, filled with paperwork, USB drive, printed images. An officer called my name gently. I rose, spine straight. He didn't ask unnecessary questions. Just listened. Took notes. Nodded. When I handed over the footage, his expression shifted from neutral to something closer to resigned concern. Like he'd seen too many siblings cross this kind of line before. "Your safety comes first," he said. "We'll file this right away. And if you need us again, don't hesitate." I thanked him, left the station, and exhaled for the first time in hours. The fog hadn't lifted by the time I got home. San Francisco often wore mist like a second skin, especially in October, but that morning it felt heavier, as if the city itself was holding its breath for me. I spent the afternoon calling my landlord. Fortunately, he didn't need much convincing. "We saw the footage. You're not the problem," he said. "I'll send someone to reinforce the frame and add a secondary lock. No charge." Then I notified my employer. "Just a short heads up to HR, there may be a family situation, nothing physical, just precautionary." They replied warmly, told me to work from home for the rest of the week. At 4:32 p.m., the package arrived. It was small, brown craft paper, no return address, my name printed in block letters. No smudges, no handwriting to analyze. I carried it inside like a ticking clock, heart steady, but mind racing. I opened it carefully. Inside, one folded piece of paper. Thick, off-white stock. Not a card. Not even typed. Just one sentence, cut out from magazines like a cliché ransom note. "You'll regret this." That was it. No signature. No fingerprints I could see. No threat, technically, just enough to rattle a weaker version of me. But I wasn't her anymore. I didn't scream. I didn't flinch. I slid the note into a Ziploc bag, pressed the air out, and sealed it tight. Then I picked up my phone and dialed. "Ms. Ridley," my lawyer answered. "Everything okay?" "No," I said calmly. "I've got something new for the file." That night, I added a second deadbolt, even though the building upgrade was already scheduled for tomorrow. I slept with a chair against the door, not because I believed Parker would come back, but because I believed in symbols. That chair meant, not again. Before bed, I lit a small candle by the window. Not for peace. Not for forgiveness. Just for clarity. The photography class was my idea of safe anonymity, something to do with my hands, something that didn't ask for explanations or apologies. I arrived early, tucked into a loose-knit circle of beginners clutching DSLRs and iced coffees, all pretending we weren't silently comparing lenses. Our instructor, a retired photojournalist named Donna, wore a weathered denim jacket and a sun hat that gave her the air of someone who once shot war zones but now preferred tomatoes at the farmer's market. "Photography," she announced, "is about what you notice, not what you own." I liked her immediately. We walked as a group down to the Saturday market on Embarcadero. Booths bloomed with sunflowers and sourdough, jam jars catching light like stained glass. Donna gave us prompts: find something yellow that isn't food, photograph an interaction without showing a face, and we scattered like bees, camera straps bouncing. I was adjusting my focus on a woman handing a balloon to a toddler when a voice beside me said, "You're overexposed." I turned, slightly annoyed. He pointed, not at me, but at my settings. "Your aperture's too wide for this light. Want help?" The stranger, mid-30s, soft brown eyes, worn leather camera bag, didn't smile with assumption. He waited. I nodded, handing over the camera. He adjusted a dial, handed it back, and gestured toward the balloon again. "Try now." I did. The photo was sharper. Cleaner. "Thanks," I said. "I'm Alex," he offered, not asking for mine. Then he walked a few steps ahead, giving me space to follow or not. I did. We wandered separately, then together. He didn't ask what I did for work, or where I was from, or whether I had family nearby. Instead, he pointed out shadows under awnings, reflections in fruit crates, and once, a pigeon doing something almost poetic on top of a baguette stand. "You ever notice," he said as we paused by the bay, "how people look more like themselves when they think no one's watching?" I didn't answer right away. Then, I used to forget to look. At people. At anything. He just nodded, like that made perfect sense. After class, I sat at a bench scrolling through the photos. One image stood out, not because I'd taken it, but because I hadn't. It was a picture of me, laughing. Candid, off-center, mid-movement. Hair in my face, head tilted back, eyes crinkled. Unprotected. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. "Alex, you looked happy. Thought you should see it." I stared at it longer than I meant to. Not because of the compliment, but because he hadn't followed it with anything else. No invitation. No expectation. He just gave me something true, then stepped back. And for once, I didn't feel like disappearing. Notifications pinged in waves, emails, tags, reposts. The post I'd written weeks ago, the one I thought had faded into the abyss of the internet, had somehow resurfaced and exploded. Again. This time, it wasn't just likes and quiet sympathy. There were essays. Threads. Strangers pouring out their own stories, daughters, sons, even grandparents, each one carrying its own brand of invisible bruises. One woman wrote about draining her 401k to keep her brother in college. A man shared how he'd been shunned for refusing to co-sign a loan for his mother. It was grief in paragraphs. Recognition in hashtags. I sat on the couch, wrapped in my favorite blanket, scrolling through it all. The lamp beside me glowed like a small sun in the otherwise dim apartment. My tea had gone cold. This wasn't just about me anymore. I hadn't planned for this. I hadn't asked for it. But there it was, a movement where there had once been just silence. A DM slid in from someone named Rachel. The name took a moment to register. Rachel K. "I know we haven't spoken since Grandpa's funeral, but I just wanted to say I saw your post. And I believe you. I always wondered why you stopped coming to holidays." I stared at it for a moment. Rachel, my cousin, hadn't messaged me in nearly a decade. But she had commented publicly. She had believed me. Without a question mark. Other messages trickled in, less kind. "Why air your family's dirty laundry like this? You should be ashamed. This is just attention-seeking." But even those couldn't touch me the way they once might have. I knew who I was now. And I had never been more certain of the truth. At 2:11 a.m., a notification blinked from someone labeled coworker, 1998 to 2002. I worked with your mother back in the day. She used to brag about how much she got out of you financially. Said you were too soft to say no. She isn't who she pretends to be. I read it twice. It wasn't anger that rose, it was clarity. Cold and clean. A breath after years of choking. An alert popped up. Olivia was going live on Instagram. Curious, I clicked. She sat in her apartment, surrounded by pristine white shelves and faux greenery, wearing an off-shoulder sweater like she was being interviewed for a lifestyle blog. Her voice trembled in that practiced influencer way, just enough vulnerability, just enough performance. I just feel like, people don't know the full story, she said, blinking hard. Sophia's always been private, but we were never cruel. She's twisting things for sympathy. The comments section disagreed. Swiftly. So where's the lie in what she posted? You laughed when she listed her sacrifices. We saw the video. Maybe stop gaslighting your sister in HD. I watched her jaw tighten. The stream ended abruptly 2 minutes later. There was a strange stillness in me. Not joy. Not triumph. Just release. At 3:03 a.m., my phone buzzed again. A text. From Dad. I think we made a mistake. 6 words. It hung on my screen like a wet coat I didn't want to touch. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. Not because I needed revenge. But because I didn't need to. The wind atop the Andes was sharp and unrelenting. It whipped past my ears like a warning, tugging at the edges of my jacket and slicing through the layers I thought would be enough. But I stood steady. Finally. Machu Picchu rose in the distance, jagged and majestic, wrapped in a shroud of early morning mist. The guide was saying something about Incan engineering and sacred sites, but I wasn't listening. Not really. My breath was loud in my chest, my calves burned, and my boots were caked with dust. But for once, none of it felt like punishment. It felt earned. I took a sip from my water bottle, eyes sweeping across the stone terraces. Somewhere behind me, a woman laughed softly as her friend tried to take a photo without squinting. And just beside them, Alex adjusted the strap on his camera bag, his silhouette calm and unfazed. He hadn't come to Peru with me, we'd met up by coincidence, 2 paths converging at the same altitude. No promises, no heavy words. Just 2 people finding comfort in shared silences. I slept that night better than I had in years. My dreams were soft and empty. No family dinners, no cold shoulders, no shrinking versions of myself begging to be seen. Just wind and stone and sky. A few weeks later, I landed in Paris. Spring hadn't quite settled in yet, but the buds were blooming with quiet determination. The sky was still gray in the mornings, but the cafes were open, and the espresso was strong enough to wake up even the most jet-lagged heart. Alex met me near Place de Vosges. We sat at a tiny iron table, our knees almost touching, watching as an older couple argued gently over whether they had time for dessert. The waitress brought me a café crème and him an espresso with a sugar cube perched perfectly on the saucer. We didn't talk about the past. Not mine. Not his. It was a kind of unspoken agreement we seemed to fall into naturally. Instead, we talked about light, how it hits a rooftop at just the right hour, how the texture of old bricks changes with the setting sun. He asked if I'd been posting my photos. I said yes. In the evenings, I wandered the narrow streets, camera slung over my shoulder, capturing whatever caught my eye, a chipped doorway painted in aquamarine, a child chasing pigeons in front of Notre Dame, a row of half-melted candles inside a chapel. My feet began to fill again, not with confessions or rage, but with color. With texture. With fragments of quiet joy. And slowly, I noticed something. The word family stopped making me flinch. Not because I'd forgotten what they did. Not because I forgave it all. But because I'd stopped centering my identity around their acceptance. I was more than the daughter who got erased from a will. More than the wallet they emptied with guilt and sweet words. I was someone who could wake up in a foreign country and feel rooted. Someone who could laugh in a photograph without watching her own expression for signs of apology. It was late on a Tuesday when the email came. I was curled up in my Paris rental, editing a photo of morning light spilling across a cafe table. The image had caught something tender, the smudge of a lipstick stain on a cup. I stared at the screen for a long time, the hum of the fridge the only sound in the apartment. Somewhere outside, a dog barked once and then fell quiet. Golden Gate Park wore its usual gray, the kind of overcast that felt less like a cloud and more like a giant held in breath. Wind rattled eucalyptus leaves overhead, scattering the smell of damp earth and something faintly medicinal. I chose a bench facing the conservatory's glass panes. Tourists trickled past, cameras raised, unaware they were backdrop to a quieter story. Olivia was 23 minutes late. She appeared at the path's bend, coat pulled tight despite the mild chill, hair scraped into a loose knot that had surrendered to the fog. She looked smaller without filters and ring lights, older without curated lighting, tired, but real. Her steps slowed when she spotted me, as if gauging the temperature of invisible water. I gave a nod. Nothing more. She sat at the far end of the bench, leaving a polite stretch of wood between us. For a moment we just listened to children squealing near the carousel and the low hum of cyclists coasting by. "You still drink chai?" she asked, holding out a takeaway cup streaked with condensation. The lid was labeled SOY in black marker. I shook my head. I switched to coffee. She nodded, placed the cup on the bench slat between us, neutral territory. Fog drifted, thinning enough for a shy ray of light to flicker across the lawn. Olivia's gaze followed it, as though sunlight required supervision. "I was afraid," she said finally, voice husky and used. "Afraid of being nothing without Mom's help." She traced the cardboard sleeve with a fingertip. So I played along. It felt safer to believe I deserved the safety net than to admit I hadn't earned it. I let the words hang. They were not apology but admission, thin, trembling, unexpected. "I still don't forgive you," I answered, tone even. "But I don't hate you either." Her shoulders sagged, relief or resignation, I couldn't tell. A pair of geese waddled across the grass, squabbling over invisible borders. Somewhere a dog barked twice, its owner shushing it with gentle futility. I slipped a photo envelope from my tote and slid it across the bench. She blinked at it, hesitant, then picked it up. A single print, 2 girls in thrift store prom dresses, standing barefoot at the lake behind our childhood home, laughing so hard the image blurred at the edges. The summer we thought the world existed only to be discovered, not endured. "We were still kids then," I said. The wind caught the corner of the print, she steadied it with care. "I remember that day," she whispered. "We stole Mom's lipstick. And you said the catfish would mistake us for mermaids." A thin smile curved her lips. For one fragile beat, nostalgia bridged the distance, softening the splinters we'd thrown. I rose, smoothing imaginary creases from my coat. "Keep it," I said. "Not as a pardon, just perspective." Olivia looked up, eyes glossy in the muted light. "Will we ever?" "Maybe. Maybe not." I tucked hair behind my ear. Healing isn't choreography, Liv. It's a field. People cross at their own pace. She nodded, studying the photograph like a map. I turned toward the path. The eucalyptus leaves rattled again, then hushed as the wind stilled. I felt no triumph, no fury, just an unexpected lightness, as though I'd set down luggage I'd forgotten I was carrying. As I reached the rose garden's entrance, my phone buzzed. A text from Alex. Found a door painted the perfect Parisian blue. Made me think of your color stories. Sending the photo, hope it inspires the next post. A tiny thumbnail loaded, a door framed by vines, weathered paint peeling in delicate constellations. Imperfect, beautiful, opening somewhere new. I glanced back once. Olivia hadn't moved, head bowed over the photo, shoulders curved inward like a question mark. A part of me, the smallest part, hoped she'd find her own steady ground. I slipped the phone into my pocket and walked on, breath deep, spine tall, peace blooming warm in my chest, not because she changed, but because I did. The morning I left the park, the fog was still thick, yet my heart felt light, proof that peace is possible when we finally stop carrying what was never ours to hold. I've learned that love and boundaries aren't rivals, they walk the same road, teaching us that self-respect is just another form of compassion, for others and for ourselves. If any part of my journey echoes your own, I hope it reminds you that it is never too late to set a kinder path. I'd be honored to hear how you found courage or calm in your own family story. Feel free to share your thoughts whenever you're ready.